Hello folks, welcome to OTD, also known as On the Deck, where you can get all the sports you need in 10 minutes. My name is Adam Orduna, this is my mom Gina.
He's the journalist.
She's the enthusiast.
I don't sound enthusiastic, but I promise you I really am.
Yes, my mom Gina is definitely dealing with some throat issues right now, but that's okay. She's still going to be able to do the show. I tried to give her the day off today, but she said she wanted to come out and still do what we do every Tuesday and Thursday, and that's give the fans what they want.
Listen,
and that's the sports
God gave
update.
me this mouth for a reason. Your dad would be happy if I wouldn't use it either, but
right.
I'll just use it limited because I know this sounds terrible.
Well, that's all right, and I am giving you the gold star for fighting through. You're not the only person, obviously, on TV or on a radio show that has had the raspy voice, and so gold star goes to mom today. So we are going to be talking about the NFL and all the litany of things that have taken place, really, for the most part, just throughout the preseason, and you could say really that have taken place throughout the off season and dating back to even last season, with all the protests within our presidential climate and all the things that took place during the presidential race this last year in 2016. We have so many people that have been outspoken about the things that have taken place in this country. Colin Kaepernick is the catalyst for all of this for the most part. He's not the only one that stood up and spoke out against police brutality.
But he's the one without a job, though.
Right, he's the main person without a job as of today. Someone with his name and his stature, he should already been hired. But we're going to talk about that, and then we're also going to be talking about coaches and who really should have the job, being older or younger. Is age a big deal, or is it not a big deal? So let's actually talk about that, or let's talk about the Kaepernick stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Kind of get that rolling here, and then we'll go on with the coaching age thing here. There was a huge protest outside NFL headquarters last night. Over 1,000 people were there. People wearing Kaepernick jerseys. People raising their fists. We remember back in the 70s during the Olympics, with the two African-American Olympic athletes rose their fist when they were on the podium. And so that's kind of continued to be
they actually had black gloves on, dropped their head, and raised their fist. I mean, that was a show.
Right, and that was in the time of the Black Panthers, and where this country was still trying to move on through segregation, through all the prejudice,
after the civil rights movement,
all this stuff going on. And so it was just really the heat of the moment, and they just felt like it was something that they needed to do, and they did it. And it's a very iconic picture. You can find it all over the internet.
I think it's a beautiful tribute.
Yes, it is. They rose their hand, and they actually shared a glove, because one of the athletes had his Black Panther gloves, and the other athlete didn't have his, so he said, you just take mine, I'll wear one on my right, you wear one on your left, and you just raise your hand and raise your fist. So it was really powerful. Well, that ideology, at least within the black community, is still going strong today. And as I just said, there were over 1,000 people last night outside of the NFL headquarters. The NAACP president, Derek Johnson, met with Roger Goodell.
Well, I don't know if he met with him. He requested a meeting. Okay. I don't know if Goodell actually took the meeting.
Well, I know it would be a good idea for Roger Goodell to at least meet with them. I know, like you said, yeah, there was a meeting that was requested anyways. And so there's a lot of protests going on, obviously on the heels of Charlottesville. People are very up in arms about what took place that day with the white extremists, white supremacists, the people of the KKK and the Nazis and all of these
racist hate groups.
And it's really sad to feel like at this time, in this day and age, that we're still honestly dealing with that stuff. But when you think about our country as a whole and how new and young we still are, technically, we're not that far removed from just generations of, people being slaves. And so there's still remnants of that going on.
My mom grew up in a time of segregation. Your grandmother did.
Correct.
This isn't like lost generations. This is right now.
Right.
There are people walking around right now who remember when you couldn't live.
Clear as day.
Oh yeah, there are places you couldn't eat, places you couldn't live as an African American.
Right.
2 drinking fountains. Like that's not ancient history.
No, it's not.
That's
by
recent.
any means. Right. So I am very happy for the fact that people are standing up with Colin and are trying to help promote the things that he was standing for, or kneeling for, I guess you should say, and trying to raise the awareness of the police brutality of unarmed men and women of color in this country. And that's something that should always be a thing. We should always bring awareness to the rogue cops here or there. Just like there's always a bad apple somewhere, every community has its issues. And so that doesn't mean that everybody is terrible or is bad. But as long as everyone knows what's going on and you can address it in a way that people feel good and comfortable about, I think that's something that should be done. And especially when that's why we are Americans, you should have that right to do that. So
well, you and
that was a big deal. You
and I agree. Police are heroes. My father, your grandfather,
yes.
long-time law enforcement. My cousin, your sister's godfather, is a sergeant in
yes.
the police department. We love the police.
Yeah.
All we're saying, and I think what Colin was saying was, listen, if this stuff happens, let us see an accountability chain for the
Correct.
police like you would for anybody else. And he also said and did a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
But in the letter that Derek Johnson wrote to Roger Goodell, he said, Colin Kaepernick's time as a free agent, how much time it's been, he said, quote, "It's increasingly apparent that this isn't sheer coincidence.
Right.
It's apparent that this is being done on purpose." And, Colin had the right to express himself.
Sure.
And because of his message, we really believe that he's being held out / discriminated against. And
right.
I personally am glad that people have stood up for Colin because it's important
It is.
to stand up for someone's right to express himself. I'm a little worried though, Angel, that that's hurting him.
Yeah.
The more you bring, like sometimes it's kind of like let the smoke die down on the fire. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the awareness that has been brought to all of the stuff with the police and all of the protests, I think it's good that people are on Colin's side. As far as the ownership goes in the NFL and getting him a job in the NFL, I think it has definitely still hindered him. He has still not been picked up, and I think that's really why people are still outraged, because this is a guy that is just trying to do what's right,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still being quote-unquote punished for these protests. And so we'll see what happens. I'm still hopeful for Colin. He's still, to me, one of the top 15, 20 quarterbacks in the league. He's going to win you a bunch of ball games, and he's going to still give you a chance to potentially make it deep in the playoffs because his resume shows that.
And I know my voice is terrible. I have one more thing to add.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, well, why do you care? He's a millionaire. I don't care about just Colin Kaepernick. I care about the principle that if you stand up for what's right, if you stand up for what you believe in, if you stand up for people of color, you're going to get punished the rest of your life.
Right.
That's what's bothering me about this. If an NFL star is breaking the rules, beating his wife or whatever, and this millionaire loses out on money, fine. But for a man to stand up for people of color and then get punished, that's what I have a problem with.
I agree. It's not a good look on the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
In my personal opinion. So again, we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Well, moving on to within the NFL, we have some, I guess you could call it some age discrimination within the head coaching world right now. Head coaching ranks. The Los Angeles Rams just hired a brand new coach. They let go of Coach Fisher, who was the head coach for the Titans for a long time, and then he took over the Rams when they were in St. Louis, and now he is no longer with the Rams, as he helped them get to Los Angeles, had 1 year, and then they let him go. And so now they hired the quarterback's coach, who is 30 years old, 31 years of age, Sean McVay. And he, to some people, they are calling him just like the buddy of the buddy for Jared Goff. He's kind of one of those guys that he's a young, hot coach as far as like his knowledge and understanding what he's doing. But a lot of people like Mike Martz, who was a former Rams coach, is not someone that was in favor of this hire, because he just felt like, hey, this is a guy that works well with Jared Goff, so he got the job. They're buddies, they're drinking buddies or whatever. So the Rams organization decided to just go with this guy because him and Jared work together. And so I feel like there are a lot of discussions that have been had when this first came out. What are your quick initial thoughts with him being such a young coach, the youngest coach in the NFL, and really in quite some time?
I think he's the youngest coach since like 1938.
Yeah.
But let's be clear, Mike Martz is like the old guy saying, get off my lawn. he actually said, "Make me puke." Like, he's clearly upset about this.
Yeah.
To me, you and I have slightly different, takes on this. Who cares how old he is? When I was running radio stations, I had a lot of executives who worked on my team who were younger than me.
Right.
I was, if I say so myself, very talented. Who cares how old you are?
Right.
If you're in the military, sometimes you have guys who are, been through a couple of wars, and the guy that just graduated or is younger than you gets a field commission. You got to follow the best leader. It doesn't matter how old he is.
Sure.
So, but I do get Mike Martz. He was an OC for a long time, QB coach, receivers coach, but then he also got to be a head coach for the Rams for a while. I think he's hating, to be honest. If that's what you call salt.
Right. Well, I do understand it for the standpoint of, hey, this guy is younger than a good portion of your, the guys that are on your roster. There are guys that are in their mid-30s, almost 40 years old, still playing, and they're having to take orders from a guy that's just brand new to everything. And so I do understand that aspect of things, but to me, if they're the right person for the job, then they just are. Age isn't anything but a number, and if you're the best candidate and that's all that matters, and you're the one that can, turn things around, then by all means, doesn't matter how old you are. But I do understand it when someone's saying, hey, look, this guy is the same age as my son or grandson or something like that, and it's like, hey, this guy's supposed to lead these old vets. I think it's going to be tough. So I do understand that. But again, if this guy's the best person for the job, who cares? It really doesn't matter. So we'll see. The Rams got a huge mountain to climb. This is just one little blip for them for this upcoming season. So we will find out how their season will go too. But we want to say we appreciate your time, folks. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like us on Facebook. Type in OTD. And we're going to get Mom inside so she can take some meds. We'll see you again, folks.